Hey guys, just a reminder, this is not official medical advice. For such, please seek an appointment with a licensed medical provider. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Explain This. I'm with the star of the show, Robin Riddle. Robin, it is so good to see you. How are you?
It's good to see you as well, Ben. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm currently very excited about my audio quality because I know I'm coming through loud and clear, and it's making everybody happy, including myself, so
Yep,
including
we've
Zach.
stepped up.
Zach, you're welcome for this. We're getting great audio today, but I'm excited about our topic too because one, I have a lot of friends who are kind of in this stage of life, and this is a topic that you're very passionate about. You specialize in. We talk about all the time here on Explain This, and you being a functional fertility specialist. What are we talking about today?
So today I want to explain cycle syncing. So I'm going to discuss how we eat and work out to sync with our menstrual cycle.
And when you sent this to me right before we recorded, and I didn't even know this was a thing. And there might be a few other people who don't know that this is a thing, but this is something that you can be very intentional about,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming can be very helpful in terms of are we coming from the context of getting the most out of our workouts, or
Getting the most out of our workouts and feeling our best throughout the whole month. So, on average, women have around 450 menstrual cycles in their life. So understanding how to adjust your food intake and your exercise throughout the whole month to optimize how we feel in each phase of the menstrual cycle is going to be super helpful. There's times you're going to go to exercise and you're like, man, I feel like I can take on the world. And then you go a week later and you're like, I'm going to die and I've not even started yet. So cycle syncing really helps you understand why. Kind of give yourself some grace on things. Hormones are changing every single day, but definitely throughout the different phases of the menstrual cycle. So there's a lot more research starting to go into this. There's actually some athletic teams that are starting to utilize this for women and changing the way that they train, times of competitions, things like that, to try to match cycle syncing better.
it makes so much sense. I'm even thinking from anyone's perspective. You want to kind of I've read things where should you work out at what time of the day, whether you're male or female,
Yeah.
in terms of like when you have the most energy, and this is obviously very specific. So let's get into it. Let's
Yeah.
how are we going to do this?
Okay, we'll dive in. So, hormones, like I said, hormones fluctuate throughout the cycle. So, that fluctuation in hormones for females literally changes the way that your body burns carbohydrates, how we're able to how we're able to recover, what our energy levels look like. All of that fluctuates based on what our hormone levels look like.
Mm.
So, women, it's lovely. We're way more complicated than men. Men, your testosterone levels are pretty steady. You can do the same thing basically every day and always feel good doing it. Women, not so much the case. We're more complicated. So, what I'm explaining today is based on women who are not on any kind of hormones or contraceptives that's going to alter their hormone levels. And for women who have on average about a 28-day cycle. Now, a lot of people fluctuate off of that a little bit. So some people, they'll be closer to 26 days. Some people may be 32, 34 days. But I'm basing this off of the average 28-day cycle. So
Okay. Okay.
if your cycle varies a little bit, you can stretch these lengths of cycles out or shorten them based on what your actual cycle looks like.
Okay.
So, step one is understanding the menstrual cycle. So, when I say menstrual cycle, a lot of people think just the female's period, but that is only one part of the menstrual cycle. What I'm talking about with the menstrual cycle is the entire 28 days from the time that a period starts to the time that the next period starts.
Okay.
This is divided into two halves. So the day that a female starts bleeding, the day that a period starts, this is considered cycle day 1. This starts the average 28 days. So the first half is called the follicular phase. Then we get to ovulation around day 14. Second half is called the luteal phase. So in follicular phase, we tend to be very estrogen dominant. And then in the luteal phase, we are progesterone dominant. And knowing that, we know higher estrogen levels tend to increase energy. It helps to boost our mood. It increases our insulin sensitivity. So we literally process carbohydrates better when we have more estrogen in our system. Estrogen helps to lower inflammation, and it actually helps us to recover faster from workouts. On the flip side of that, when we go into the luteal where we're progesterone dominant, higher progesterone can actually start to lower energy levels. It can reduce how effectively the body uses carbs. It can increase cravings. We slow down on our recovery, and it actually even lowers the immune system at this point. So knowing those general changes, we can start to adapt throughout the cycle. So, like I said, sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's super interesting in that because I'm trying to think, okay, does that mean you put your heavier workouts, in that first half of the cycle, or is it just purely, I just prepare differently, or my recovery is a little bit different?
Yeah.
Because that's really good information there. That if I'm a woman, I would really want to know, especially if exercise is a big part of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can really take it either way with this.
Okay.
Like, part of it can just be like, I'm mentally prepared, I can't do as much.
Yeah.
But my intention is to teach people how to actually shift your exercise and your food intake based on where your hormones are at that point. So we
Okay.
can really optimize our output. Um, so like I said, there's two main phases, the follicular and the luteal, but for the purpose of cycle syncing, I break that down even further into four distinct phases.
Okay.
So the first phase is going to be your menstrual phase. This is cycle day 1 when bleeding starts up until typically about cycle day 5 for most women. During this part of the cycle, both your estrogen and progesterone levels drop. It's like hitting a reset button on the hormones for the body. Everything goes low, brings everything back to baseline. At this point, women typically have lower energy and higher inflammation. So, those first few days of the period, this is really the time to kind of slow things down, really scale back your workouts, and like give yourself some grace. Like, your body's going through something, resetting all those hormones, everything's a little bit out of whack. So, you might not feel like pushing it in this time frame, and that's completely normal.
Okay.
Consider things like gentle yoga, maybe some more stretching or mobility work, walking, light strength training if you feel up to it. It can be really tempting just to curl up on the couch and like veg out with Netflix while you're on your period, but studies do show that some level of exercise and movement can actually help to ease those period symptoms. So we want to stay moving. We just don't want to push it.
Is there negative consequences to pushing it during that period of time?
Not necessarily negative, you're just not going to get the same results.
Okay.
Like, you're probably not going to be able to push the same amount of weight. You're not going to have that same level of energy in a workout
Okay.
at this point in the cycle.
And that can be frustrating.
Very frustrating. You go to the gym and you're like, why can I not do this today? But when you understand hormonally, like, your body is shifting, it makes it a little bit easier to understand why you can't push it that day.
Okay.
So diet-wise, when we're in this menstrual phase, we really want to prioritize iron-rich foods because we're losing blood, so we need to replace some iron. So lean red meat, spinach, lentils, foods like that, things that are rich in vitamin C to help us reabsorb that iron. Also adding in things with magnesium, so pumpkin seeds, almonds, leafy green vegetables, even dark chocolate. Those magnesium-rich foods have been shown to help with menstrual cramps. So how we eat in this time can make us feel a lot better. We really want to keep carbs to the lower end of things because we haven't really kicked into that insulin sensitivity yet. So we don't want to overdo it on carbs at this point. Then as we start to transition out of that menstrual phase, we start moving into what's called the follicular phase. And so for numbers purposes, I put this at cycle day 6 to around cycle day 14. So this is when estrogen is on the rise. So when estrogen's going up, it means the body is going to process carbohydrates better. We have better insulin sensitivity. We recover faster, and motivation starts going up. So this is when we really start to push it. It's an ideal time to start doing your progressive overload strength training, HIIT exercises, endurance work, start really pushing those PRs in the gym, because this is when you're going to have energy for that.
And this is during the days 6 through 14.
Around 6 to 14, the follicular phase. Yeah.
Okay.
Diet-wise, the body is utilizing carbs a lot better at this point. So now is a time in your cycle when you can push up on the carbs a bit more to fuel the more intense training that we're doing. Anytime I'm saying to push carbs, I'm obviously talking about more of those complex carbohydrates. So quinoa, brown rice, sweet potatoes, those sorts of things. And then we also want to make sure we're keeping our protein intake nice and high so we can help to support muscle building during this phase. If we're in the gym and we're pushing the weights, we need the protein to help us recover.
Okay, so we're going hard. We're doing our hardest workouts during this time. And then, so I'm assuming, is this in 4s, or is there 2 more parts to this, or
2 more parts to
2
this.
more parts? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next part is ovulation phase. Ovulation typically occurs around cycle day 14. Again, this varies from person to person. But ovulation is an amazing time for female hormones. This is when estrogen reaches its peak. Testosterone levels go up at this time as well. So women feel strong and energetic, and it's like you can take on the world. This is where you're going to reach max power, max strength, max speed.
Okay.
So it's the perfect time where we're really going to be able to reach those PRs. Like in the follicular phase, we're working up to that. We're pushing weights up. This is the time you're really going to be able to push maximum weight.
Okay.
One caution is that during this phase of the menstrual cycle, with the hormonal changes, our ligaments are a little bit more lax, which means you could get injured a little bit easier. So this is the time to make sure that you warm up really well before you really start pushing it, because it's the time you're going to hurt yourself if you don't.
And it's the time it seems like you're lifting the most weight. You're
Yeah.
going as hard as you can.
You go to jump in there and all of a sudden you've
Yeah.
strained some muscle, and then you're down for a week or 2 after that.
Yeah.
So I can speak to this. I've done this before. I came home from doing shoulders and somehow had thrown my back out. My husband's like, "What have you done?" I'm like, "Don't even ask." Don't even ask.
Shoulders, and you threw out your back?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's what I get for not warming up and trying to push weights really hard. And yes.
Yeah, I was
bad.
like, okay, Robin knows about this phase here.
Yeah.
She mentioned the ligament thing
Yeah.
from a different perspective.
Had to go to the chiropractor. It was all the thing.
Man.
So make sure you warm up before
Yes.
you push that heavy weight. Diet-wise, during this phase, you can definitely still keep those carbs a lot higher, fueling that peak output. Also consider adding in some anti-inflammatory foods like your berries, turmeric, things like that are going to help more with recovery.
Okay.
And then the last section is the rest of the luteal phase. So this is technically around cycle day 15 to about cycle day 28, or when the next period starts.
Okay.
So as we move into the luteal phase, progesterone levels are going to start to rise. But this is not an instant overnight rise. So a lot of times we can kind of ride that high from ovulation a bit into that luteal phase. But as progesterone levels start to come up, energy levels are going to start to decline. So like I said, early luteal phase, we're still kind of riding that high coming from ovulation. We can still keep more of that moderate to high intensity exercise as tolerated. Now, this is going to be different for every person, but if you still have that good energy, push it. But the further that we move into that luteal phase, we really start to shift into more of a moderate intensity. So start dropping the weight a little bit, focusing more on form versus how much weight you can push, even transitioning more again into yoga, stretching, and making sure we're getting good recovery days. Progesterone does decrease muscle recovery, and like I said, it down regulates the immune system. So we may notice that we feel more inflamed in this time frame.
One thing I'm hearing from you, Robin, is that one, just knowing this, success looks different, for
Hmm.
each different phase, and I think it's important for women to know that, because I know people can be very hard on themselves if
Yeah.
if they're not feeling it, or if they're not moving the same amount of weight they are used to. So I think this is as much of a mindset thing as anything.
Absolutely. And not to use it as an excuse,
Right.
but, like I love doing incline cardio. So I get on our treadmill and I set the incline to like 12 or 15 and I speed walk. And so there's some days that I'm, 3.7, 3.8 pace. I'm hoofing it and doing fine and can have a conversation. And then, a week or two later, I get on there and I can barely keep a 2.5 and I feel like I'm going to die. And it's because hormones change. So again, it does help to adjust your mindset to not be so hard on yourself. But then if you track this, it can really help you to adjust your exercise to make sure we're getting the best that we can out of it. Um,
Is there, like, you mentioned when we hit record that you know people are starting to incorporate this with competitions, with practices. Is there any, like, practical things you're seeing, as far as, like, are people, um, I guess, like in high school and college, are they adjusting when competition is on this sort of thing, or is it mainly just
trainer
practices?
Yeah, trainers are definitely adjusting, like how hard they're pushing women
Mm,
at different points.
okay.
Of course, because women have to be so complicated, we also all tend to be on different cycles. So if we, tried to set a big competition for 100 women based on a menstrual cycle, we fail
Right.
horribly.
Right.
We'd never line everybody up. But, as a female, if you have something that you're scheduling for yourself, for something, big goals that you want to reach, you've got something that you're going to plan for, planning that during that like ovulatory window is going to give you your best chance at success.
Mm, super
So,
interesting. Super
yeah.
interesting.
And so then diet in that luteal phase, like I said, cravings start to go up at this point because calorie demand actually starts to go up. Like the way that our metabolism is working in this second part increases. So we increase our calorie intake by about 1 to 300 calories a day.
Hmm.
But in the same time, the body is not using and processing carbs as well during this luteal phase. So we become less insulin sensitive and we're more likely to have blood sugar dysregulation if we're overdoing it on the carbs. So we really want to start decreasing carb intake at this point and focus our carbs more around our workouts so that we can use those carbs. So we eat the carbs, we work out, it helps to stabilize our blood sugar better.
Mm.
And then we can help manage all of those extra cravings by just making sure we're consuming really nutrient dense foods that have plenty of protein and fats to help really fill you up and keep that blood sugar stable.
Mm.
So, quick summary. Um, Basically, menstrual phase, first couple of days, really take it easy. Focus more on light weights, walking, yoga, keep your carb intake lower. Start to amp things up during that follicular phase around cycle day 6 to around cycle day 14. Increase your weights, start doing HIIT training, and up that carb intake. Around ovulation, we push it. Time to hit those PRs, really keep the carbs coming. This is your strongest part of the month. Ride the ovulation high for as long as you can into luteal phase. But as the energy starts dropping, we want to start decreasing our weights and focusing more on good form and good recovery. Decrease the carbs in this time frame, and then we prepare to start to transition back into the menstrual phase again.
Mm.
Let's do it all over, month after month.
You sound so defeated, and do it all over again.
All over again.
Well, I tell you what, one, shout out to the ladies. This is way more complex, than what us kind of dumb men have to do. We have zero excuses, but also, like, I just feel like the more the better off you'll be. And this is stuff that, yeah, I don't think a lot of women who take exercise very seriously, I don't think they think enough about this.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for them to get this episode, and hopefully they can, start to see more and more success, in their workouts and competitions
Yeah.
and things of that nature. But that's incredible, Robin. I mind blown.
That's what I'm here for.
There we go. Well, Robin, is that a pod? Is that an Explain This episode?
That's the cast. Yep.
All right, guys, thank y'all so much for joining us again on this episode of Explain This. You name it, we explain it. As always, we'll see you next time.
Don't go away.